Hey guys! After the amazing feedback from our last video on energy activator drop rates and the optimal target farming route, we wanted to go through and find the best ways and places to target farm crystallization catalysts. This video is going to cover all of the data that we got from target farming catalysts, the times we recorded, and discuss whether target farming is actually effective for helping push us towards endgame in the first Descendant. With that, let's get into the absolute fastest way to get crystallization catalysts at all stages in the game. After going through every mission in the game that dropped amorphous material with catalysts, we found that most of them weren't great for fast and consistent farming. So let's move to Outposts and Void Reactors. One of the best things about normal Void Reactors is that they only require 15 total shards to activate, which makes them super easy to farm quickly. We created a spreadsheet of all the normal difficulty outposts and reactors and found a baseline for good places to target farm. All of the regions listed in green have an outpost, a void reactor, and a crystallization catalyst in the drop pool, as well as the associated void shard cost and linked amorphous material. Now, if you're anything like me, you've spent a lot of time in the bunny cave to grind XP. This means that I have a ton of monomer and inorganic void shards that I really don't know what to do with. While you can pick whichever location best suits your current void shard capacity, I chose to farm the Sterile land repository outpost. All of these routes have a very similar clear speed, and with the 1.04 update, outposts have had their timer shortened to 1 minute. This means that you can sit and wait in between outposts, maybe watch some YouTube or a movie, or you could go open the amorphous material at the nearby void reactor and make it back in time to clear the outposts again. We also know that with the recent 1.05 update, new amorphous material has been added, and we'll be updating the spreadsheet with any changes right as this video goes live. Now let's get into actually farming these outposts. You're going to want to play Sharen for these because completing outposts with a successful infiltration adds an extra copy of the amorphous material into the potential drop pool in normal mode. Now, in case you don't know, a successful infiltration means that while invisible, you need to interact with every outpost crate, marker, beacon thing in the area to instantly destroy them without any enemies detecting you. Now, this may take a couple of tries to nail a route for each outpost, but it's really pretty easy once you get it down. Now, I just want to mention one thing, that if you come across a map and you see a Sharen who's farming one of these outposts, don't rush in and try and kill the boss or the enemies quickly. Wait till they're done, stay out of sight, don't let the enemies see you, and then you can go in and kill the boss. Otherwise, you're kind of ruining the infiltration. Now, to run these, I've been using a very basic Sharen build, focused around purely maximising our active camo uptime. There's no investment on this build at all, just a handful of mods dedicated to giving me as much time as possible to infiltrate the outpost. So I'm using skill extension and maximise duration for the duration increases, and focus on electric and MP conversion to make the cooldown slightly more acceptable in case I mess up a run, which was quite often actually. You're not going to need survivability here, because you're more than likely going to stay alive from your external components, but you're more than welcome to take off some of the cooldown for survivability if you really need it. Also, one handy little tip to know when you're farming for energy activators or for catalysts is that the normal difficulty amorphous materials have an energy activator in them if they're even, and a catalyst if they're an odd number. The reverse is true for hard mode, where even materials have catalysts and odd numbers have energy activators in them. Now let's look at the outpost drop rates because they can be kind of confusing. So on normal, there's a base 20% drop chance on clear for the amorphous material. That means that we'll get an amorphous material drop on average every 5 runs. Now, if you scroll down on the outpost drop table, you'll see that upon infiltration, you'll get in between 5 to 20% drop chance for a second matching amorphous material. This 5 to 20% drop chance seems to scale with how many of the outpost objectives you destroy while invisible. From our 100-run trial of successful infiltrations, we ended up with a 42% drop chance for amorphous materials, which lines up perfectly with what the game says. Now, given the advertised 40% drop rate, and our average of 1 minute and 15-second clear speed, including wait time for the outpost to respawn, it means that it takes about 2.5 runs for each drop. Therefore, we get an amorphous material every 3 minutes and 7 seconds, which beats our fastest mission clear time by over 1.5 minutes. Alright, let's talk about opening these up now. We were getting repeated clears of this void reactor really quickly. Seeing as the related reactor only spawned in 2 elite enemies, we could set up a damage over time field where they would keep spawning them. For this I used Freyna, but other characters like Blair, Viessa or Valby would also work really well. On normal, crystallization catalysts have a 15% drop chance, compared to the hard mode drop chance of 20%. This means that on hard we'd have to open around 5 materials to get a catalyst, and on normal it averages out to about 7. So in our test trial of 100 runs, here's all the loot that we got. It's important to keep in mind that while you may get more or less than 15 out of 100, the chances are the same. We ended up with 11 catalyst blueprints, 2 Kyle codes, 4 Python nanotubes, 48 Albion cavalry gun blueprints, and 35 Nazestra's devotion polymers. All in all, this is some minor variance from the advertised drop rates, but at the end of the day it took very little time to grind, and now I've got 11 catalyst blueprints for my future builds. Including the optimal opening time of under 17 seconds each material, the total average time per catalyst comes out to around 22 minutes, giving us almost 3 an hour, which is honestly a really good use of your time if you need to improve your builds. So having said all that, why would it be important for you to target farm in the first Descendant? Target farming refers to spending a large amount of time going for one singular item. It means trying to maximise the chances of getting one specific piece of loot regardless of the other results. For example, our last video on energy activators had us going through and farming normal missions for a 3% drop chance. Most of the other rewards we got from doing that were pretty useless, but it was absolutely the fastest way to grind just energy activators. Now we can compare this to standard farming, and we'll weigh up the pros and cons. Standard farming generally results in getting the desired item slower, but you'll also be getting other loot that's worth more. Target farming leads to faster grind times, but overall worse loot. It also has the downside of being pretty boring and can often lead to faster burnout. Generally, most people want to target farm in order to catch up or to reach endgame faster. It's about increasing the efficiency of farming harder content by getting a ton of upgrades quickly in the easier content. At the end of the day, it's really up to you if you want to target farm, but I'd highly recommend it if you find your current builds to be a little lacking or slow in harder content, or if you just want to set yourself up for future build crafting. So if you made it to the end of the video, thanks so much for watching. Let me know how your crystallization catalyst farming is going in the comments. I'd love to hear about it. And as always, don't forget to like and subscribe.